About a week apart. I'm gonna take a look and send that.
Ready? Stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people.
And we've been taking a moment of silence to recognize the value and importance of women's reproductive rights. So agenda amendments in the consent agenda. I would like to add item number 6, reappoint Bill Instana to the Ulster County Planning Board. And then I would also like to move item number 6 that was in an earlier draft as the final item in the business agenda regarding a new fire truck and additional items should include item number 6 in the business agenda, a letter regarding sidewalks and our role as a host community. And item number 8 is a response memo in regards to sales tax sharing and the town of New Paltz preliminary 2023 budget. Item number 9 has to do with an application that we hope to submit regarding Governor's Office of Storm Recovery assistance to harden our sewer plant. And I think that was it as far as changes. Did I miss anything? But
I think there was one more change in the consent agenda, but I'm not finding it.
it may be because we moved the fire truck that, sorry,
Oh,
that was
okay, okay.
confusing. Motion to move both agendas as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to, oh, you're absolutely right. So in item number 5 of the consent agenda, we have to add
Oh.
Jonathan Kolb's resignation from the Environmental Policy Board. Unfortunately, he moved. He was an active member, so thank you for your service. So motion to move the consent agenda as re-amended.
Second.
All in favor? Motion to move the consent agenda.
I have a question about 5A.
Mhm.
I know we had some back and forth on this, but I sent an email to our attorney just to get some clarity because I spoke to Suzanne and she does want to stay on the board if there is some kind of possibility to recuse for her. And I just don't know if that's possible as it is now. So I just wanted to mention it here.
So let's remove this from the consent agenda and we'll revisit that. So third amendment or update to the consent agenda, remove 5A. Motion to approve that consent agenda as amended. All in favor? Aye. Motion to move the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Announcements, village's offices will be closed November 8th for Election Day and on Friday, November 11th for Veterans Day. Our fire department has officially moved to 59 North Putt Corners. And that means that this meeting room, which is on the ground level, so it's accessible, is open for public use. Community members interested in using the room should contact our clerk's office. And upcoming scheduled meeting changes, the Zoning Board of Appeals will meet on Monday, November 7th. And then upcoming public hearing schedule, we have a ZBA public hearing that will open on November 7th regarding 65 Huguenot Street. And the planning board has a few public hearings that will open on November 15th. One is on 65 Huguenot Street, a second is on 2 Academy Street, a third is on 115-127 Main Street. And those are the announcements from this list. Is Eve with us tonight?
Yeah.
Eve, do you want to share any dates as our county legislator?
Dates.
Updates.
Updates,
Oh,
yes.
Your updates are dates. Okay. Go.
No, they're not. So the resolution for eviction services passed. So legal services will have a contract to provide free legal counsel for anyone facing evictions whose income is up to 80% of the API. It was voted down, just to say publicly, by all but 2 Republicans. And it was voted down by Legislator Petit from Esopus and Legislator Maloney from Saugerties, but it still passed. And sorry, my dogs are picking this moment to have a little wrestle. The other thing is, quiet. The Main Street ARPA proposal passed. The important thing to mention, the compromise originally, this proposal, oh my goodness, guys, quiet. Sorry. Was to give to an anchor business, like 20,000 for an anchor business, and there would be like 5 in the whole county. So we, several of us were not supportive of this. So basically the compromise, in which you all have to know, is whatever is applied for, an anchor business can apply for it. However, they have to get sign off from you all, from their village board, if it's New Paltz, and elsewhere from their town board or village board. So that way there can only be 1 application per municipality. So if you all want to have an application and you use it for sidewalks or lighting or something else, then you'll say no to a business that says we would like to apply for it. So, but whoever applies from Village of New Paltz has to get your group's permission. So I encourage you, before you give permission to a business who may very easily come to you and say, I'd like that $20,000, make sure before you say yes that there's not something that you would like to apply for it instead. Make sense? And then the only other thing is that to know that in the 2023 budget, there is yet another water sewer for municipalities put aside. This would be a match up to $500,000. So it's forthcoming. We obviously haven't voted on the 2023 budget, but I wanted to make sure you knew that there was that there. And then the last thing is, we're finding ourselves wanting to make sure we put aside money for housing, right? We all know that this is an issue. The challenge is figuring out what exactly that should look like, because just putting money aside without some specific plans. So it'd be useful to hear if there are any ideas of some logical ways that money could actually be used, in addition to infrastructure support, which I think is the water sewer stuff that's happening, but also sort of how to determine where, there's the idea of money to help individuals who own homes to build accessory housing, to renovate their housing, to green their housing, but then there's also sometimes developers who want to actually add affordable, reasonable housing in a location that we actually would like them to. And so figuring out how to identify that is the challenge. And also we're trying to work on several policies related to housing, foreclosure policies, how to prioritize, how we want to spend housing money. Like there's a lot of discussion right now on how to best invest in housing. And this is a good time to impart any wisdom that you all have as we start working all this out. Any questions for me?
Well, just thank you for your work on that resolution, providing legal aid, for evictions. That's a big deal, and I'm really happy that it went through. And thanks as always for all these updates. I'll definitely keep up as best I can with the, different ad hoc working groups, bring back that way too.
Yeah, that's great. Hopefully those working groups actually have some resolutions very soon, because they're technically supposed to be done at the end of 2022, which is around the corner. So yeah, I appreciate your engagement with that. And anything else?
No, thanks again for the ongoing upgrades. I find them very useful.
Good. I think also, let me just add that they're working on, a lot more county charge EV stations. And I know New Paltz area is, targeted for some more of those, but they definitely are trying to put more everywhere, particularly because they're converting the bus fleet to a green fleet. And so these buses need to be able to charge. So look forward to that in our near future.
Cool.
All right,
Good
thanks.
stuff. Any other announcements from our board?
We have a couple. Resisterhood's Red Tent Drive is ending at the end of this month. Right now, there are red tent boxes at Lush, Elton Library, the El Salon, and Jam Hair Studio. The Red Tent Drive is a collection of maxi pads for Family of New Paltz, and this is the 6th annual drive that is being done in conjunction with family and the needs that they have. So far, donations picked up a bit. We're also collecting cash to where 100% of the fund goes towards purchasing these pads. So if you wanted to donate money, it's a PayPal at Resisterhood 150. So that's a big drive that helps supply family each year. And we're about, I guess, a month out from the 18th annual Turkey Trot, which also, benefits Family of New Paltz. So you could sign up for that at newpaltzturkeytrot.com.
I have a couple announcements, some harm reduction announcements. The Never Use Alone hotline is open 24/7. That number is 800-484-3731. It saves lives. Narcan and other harm reduction services are always available upon request anywhere in Ulster County and can be delivered to you. You can call or text 914-610-5324. And those, other services include fentanyl test strips and different, safe use kits. So don't be shy, reach out to that number and the folks there will help you out. And then the free food fridge operates 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. right outside Village Hall, 25 Paddock Hill Avenue. Please keep up with your generous contributions of food that you label the ingredients of, and please don't go hungry and, go get food if you need it. For more information on guidelines, head over to millionsofbutterflies.org/free-food-fridge. And then early voting starts this Saturday. So you can get more info on locations and times and the ballots and stuff over at ulstervotes.com. That's it for my
Any other
announcements.
announcements? Okay, we have public comment listed next, and then we also have a public hearing open. I imagine some people in person or online would like to comment. I'm fine with, we could, if anyone here would like to make a comment, we'll start with the people who are here. Feel free to make a comment on the proposed law or any other topic. We can flip-flop back and forth, is fine with me. Mr. Loza, you want to
My name is Leonard Loza.
Glenn, come a little closer. How do you want to do this, Autumn? Just so Glenn's here.
Sit there.
Yeah.
The speaker is in the center.
Okay. My name is Leonard Loza. I'm a village resident. I live on North Oakwood Terrace. I'm here to speak in regard to the proposed change for the adjustment or the proposed change of allowing people outside of New Paltz to become appointees for the Affordable Housing Board. It is a requirement.
There's no, we're not proposing that anyone outside of New Paltz be appointed to any board or commission. What we're doing is and we did this some time ago.
Okay.
We changed the law. So for instance, on the planning board, if there was someone who lived in the town outside of the village, we could consider appointing them to the planning board. However, we still need a majority village residents,
I understand.
but we could not appoint someone who is from outside of the town of New Paltz.
Then I apologize. I got some wrong information. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Jane, you want to come on up?
Hi, my name is Jane Chamber. I live on North Manheim. And last meeting, I was out of the country, but I submitted comments which I would like to amend, and I'll read the new comments because I wrote them very hastily as I was running to the airport practically. So let me just start. Last year, I gave public comment before this board to help stimulate affordable housing in the village. Now I'm offering comment in the public hearing on the proposed change to chapter 132-2 of the New Paltz Village Code. Such a change would set a precedent that could simply open all village boards and committees to non-village residents and voters. Now, you had just corrected Len, and I understand that, but from the reading of both the existing law and the amendment, that isn't clear. So let me just continue to go ahead. And it certainly could be clarified. It would allow all those who do not pay village taxes to act on behalf of those who do. The changes appear to gut the necessary enforcement and verification standards specified in Part C3 of the law. I say appear, this is my reading of the change. The separability clause is troublesome as it appears to provide legal loopholes which may be punitive to applicants who must meet affordability standards. It would make our most vulnerable residents subject to agendas of those who do not live in this community, by which I mean the village, and I feel that's unacceptable. Last year, outsiders and pressure groups were brought in to force changes in New Paltz housing laws. That assault on our village ruptured the trust between the residents and the village government, which I do not feel has been repaired. The toxicity and fear triggered rent rises and made housing in New Paltz less affordable for all renters. Many seniors and residents are suffering with rent rises like mine, 20% in 2 years. Affordable housing units must go to qualified village residents. The process of placement, monitoring, and enforcement must be 100% transparent and conducted by village residents and voters who are answerable to the board and the community to ensure housing equity the law intends. I urge you to appoint village residents and voters with experience and resources who know how to solve problems quietly and successfully. I know 2 residents who would serve, and I could easily find a third. Appoint proper volunteers, then preserve and enforce this law as currently written. Drop the changes. Thank you very, very much.
If you have any volunteers, please encourage them
There
to
is
come.
my
with us.
resume. I volunteer. I believe Adele Gruber may volunteer, and I have absolute conviction that I could find you a third person to serve.
Thank you.
I'm happy to do it, and had you asked, because this is something that's very close to my heart, making sure that people can afford to live where they want. Not all of us can. I'd like to live on Park Avenue in the city, but I can't afford it. So
Our affordable housing board only has 3 members right now, and
Right, I had seen that on the
Yeah,
website,
and
so I'm,
but a lot of our boards also need help. So if you can help fill the board, that would be amazing.
I was on a board in the past, several years ago.
Landlord-tenant
with
relations.
Landlord-tenant relations, and I have to say, I did not stay on the board for very long because it was just, there was just something happening. There was no dialogue with anybody on the village board. There were some things I found out in doing research and trying to help get the landlord registry updated in the computer system. And I was told that nobody was interested in the things I found or any kind of suggestions I would, had made just from sitting there for hours and hours and, typing in stuff from written pieces of paper with missing information and stuff. I'm sure that's been changed, but I think that, Michelle is very responsive and I saw that she was the liaison for this. So I felt that, that would be good because we wouldn't be hitting a brick wall like we did last time. And I sort of left, I wrote to you, you may not remember.
I like your shirt.
I wore it especially. I'm gonna wear it for the next 15 days.
Anyone in person interested in making a comment on anything? Amy, you want to come up?
Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
I'm Amy Cullen. I live at 11 North Chestnut Street and I own the Groovy Blueberry at 1 Water Street. And I'm here tonight because I'm a village resident, a business owner for 25 years and a local property owner. And I was shocked to hear of a proposal that there'll be outsiders to represent our village residents. And I'm happy for the clarification. Thank you. I really appreciate that because somehow something started and a rumor came to me
Yeah, sorry that wasn't clear.
that people in Kingston were going to come onto our boards now. That's what I heard. And
Heck
that's
no.
part of why I came here tonight.
No
Because
people
that
from
really got me
Kingston.
upset. So I'm not as upset now.
I was born in Kingston, but no way.
I mean, I appreciate it as it's actually very historic and beautiful. But since I'm here, I'm still going to read my letter. And I'm also going to volunteer for any board that you need me on.
Great.
Anyone. I'll even do 2 if they meet once a month.
Volunteer firefighter?
You know what? I don't know if I can jump high enough to the top of the jungle gym, but I am willing to try. If you have a trainer who is gentle, who is not a bully, I am willing to try and I will do that for you.
Awesome.
Okay. So we have plenty of village folks who would be delighted to serve on our boards and committees. Of course, these people I know are business owners and landlords. And I find it appalling that you consider outsiders. And I don't think that would be a democratic process for outsiders to set policies for stakeholders and for residents. And if you truly need volunteers, please reach out to our business community. We have many ready and able volunteers. Just ask. And it's sad that we feel that we need to garner support from outside of our local community. Well, I'm going to put a big red line through that because I'm not upset about that now. Okay, that's good. And I would like to work together with our actual community residents, all kinds of residents in the village. We have lots of different kinds of people. And I think that this is a good democratic way to discuss our issues and find solutions. And perhaps some friends of outside that don't live in the village, but really care about our policies, and care about people, and care about affordable housing. I think it would be really great if they have a lot of time and they have the inclination that they can get together and work on town and county housing projects. And from my understanding, there are a lot of grants available. We just have to really focus on it, have grant writers, and get involved in looking for locations, finding the money, and then finding builders. I mean, you guys know better than I do because I'm not on the board. But from what I understand, there's a lot of federal grants available. And I think this would be an incredible project for a village that we could all get excited and every kind of person in this village could get behind. And I would really like to see that. I anyway, I'm looking forward to that. And if there are any boards that you could think of, I don't really want to come here and volunteer for boards that nobody wants me on. And I don't really have time for it. I've been really, really busy in my life. But I have been on boards and commissions in the town for over 10 years. I'm caring, I'm responsible, I'm polite, I'm decent, and I want to work together. Thank you.
And apologies again for any miscommunications. where-
Another comment, I'm just, while I'm here, this is kind of more like a public comment. When you guys put on agenda like blah, 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 this law and blah, 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 this thing we're gonna pass. Just, for like the average citizen, it would be really great if like after like the number where you could look it up, we could just maybe in parentheses, just say kind of what it is.
Yeah.
And that way, like, we don't have to spend our life like looking
I
up
agree.
laws.
Summary is
mean-
valuable. Yep.
We're not lawyers, we're just people trying hard. Nice thing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I just say something about the confusion about where people might come from? Comes from the fact that there isn't any qualification in the draft of the new law about how far out of, how far out of the village they can come from. It isn't defined at all.
So the new law doesn't actually address that at all, because what we did was we just actually eliminated text that said if you served on the Affordable Housing Board, you had to reside in the village. So all we did was just eliminated that. That was the amendment to that law. Whereas the law that we adopted earlier in the summer articulated that you would have to live in the town, whether it's in the village or the town outside the village. And right, so that was in the earlier law. So I think to Amy's point, what we could have done when we referenced this change is we should have said, we're looking to change this law, and this works in tandem with the other law that was
Because you're ignorant of that
yeah.
law, is very
yeah. And we try to do this on I couldn't agree more with Amy's point. Autumn and I do this all the time, where when we include text in our agendas, we try to include some descriptive language that anyone could read and understand, because right, like we all know the initialisms and acronyms and all this stuff because we deal with it every day. But when you're not looking at it, it's better to err on the side of being extra articulate. So 100%, we can always do more of that, and we should. Anyone else from Jonathan? Would you come on up and make your public comments.
How you all doing? How you doing? Good. Want to let you know, I appreciate all that you've been doing, and thank you very much for your service. Which board, which planning board, zoning board, and then landlord, which ones do you need positions? Which seats are empty? All of them?
all of them.
Well, I think PB, we actually have all members and 2 alternates, so that's solid. Zoning Board of Appeals, we need assistance. Off the top of my head, and we just saw Affordable Housing and Environmental Policy Board. A couple of people resigned. And which one? Landlord Tenant Relations Council, right? So Tony Saracena, because this conversation was happening 2 weeks ago, he volunteered to fill a spot on the Landlord Tenant Relations Council as a landlord.
Okay. Well, I served on the Tenant Landlord Commission when Terry Duncan was mayor. And we actually did some very, very good work. And I wouldn't mind being on that board again. Or on the planning board, or on the zoning board, or whichever board. And I just want to give you a little of my experience. I mean, besides, I have a degree in economics, a degree in psychology, and a degree in music. Lived here for 26 years, my business here for 26 years. Brought my 4 children up here all those years. And I went to the town when they needed a planning board member. And I put my application in. And then what did I hear? I just heard crickets, just crickets. Didn't get a response, so I sent them another letter. Crickets, not a response. And my wife, I said to my wife, Amy, what's going on? Why aren't they responding? She called them up, crickets. I'm just saying, so you have a lot of, and not you guys, but in the past, there are a lot of people, a lot of residents that wanted to be on a lot of these boards. But unfortunately, politically, they didn't agree with the board. And so the board really didn't want to know from them. And so it became a political process and not basically a residential, community process. And that's what I'd like to see changed. Sometimes there are board members that are independent thinking people that don't fall in line with the way everybody, let's say you guys might feel about certain issues. And I think it's very, very important that we try to, make ends meet and bring the village together. People that believe in one thing, people that I think we could all get together and basically have a nice, wonderful community. And that's basically all I have to say. And thanks for the time. And I really appreciate it. You, and you. And you.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good
Thanks,
night.
Amy.
Thank you.
Anyone from the internet interested in making the public comment?
I think we lost someone.
Hi, Adele.
Hi there, how are you? I'm also here to talk about this change to chapter 132. And I wasn't aware that it only included town residents. However, I still believe that all village boards should have all village residents, all of them. Tenant landlord committee, which is a committee, I think, and not a board, I view differently because landlords and tenants getting together can get some good things going on, and the landlords are also taxpayers. And I don't think that is a board. That's not a board. So I'm going to read my letter, which you guys have, but I heard didn't get read. I'm just not buying this allowing town residents because if that's the case, if we can't find people, then we shouldn't have a village, So here's my letter. As a village resident for almost 50 years, I oppose any change that would allow non-village residents to serve on any village appointed board. I urge you not to go down the path that could lead to anyone who lives outside of the village to have any say in our village government. What's the point of having a village if we're giving away powers that we currently have? I find even the suggestion of this to be outrageous and an abuse of power. If there are not enough volunteers to serve on these boards, I would suggest that you either make a more compelling case for volunteering, allow people who don't agree with you to volunteer, or consolidate with the town. You've been elected to serve the people of the village of New Paltz. We have enough challenges, and I, a voter and taxpayer in the village, don't want people who are not invested in the village or who have a broader agenda to take away the rights of our residents. I do believe that the tenant landlord committee should include property owners, landlords, whether or not they live in the village. The village board has always been opposed to this, and I don't know why. This tenant landlord committee is not a board and has no real power, but could actually advance relations between landlords and tenants. The optics are bad. Please don't allow non-village residents to serve on any village board. I would happily volunteer to serve on that housing board. I'm experienced in real estate and the planning board. I have I have a pretty good resume. And it doesn't seem that it's all that, it's once every 3 months from what I understand. I really feel like if you allow this, that what's gonna happen is, to me, this is taxation without representation. And the village residents should be on village boards. And and that's the way, I don't understand why we wouldn't have it that way. And town residents can be on town boards. Thank you.
Thanks, Adele. I'm just going to share, just for some context, that I respectfully completely disagree with the assertion that this is taxation without representation. So there's one affordable housing board in this community, and it happens to be in the village. There's also one bicycle and pedestrian committee, and it's a joint board. On Monday evening before their meeting, I spoke with Professor Dan Lipson, who chairs that committee. Dan happens to live off of Springtown Road, but he's a professor at SUNY New Paltz. We discussed a variety of wish list items that we would like to approach the DOT about. Those wish list items are both in the village and the town outside the village. I don't agree that there is any conflict whatsoever with what we're proposing to do by allowing someone who lives outside the village in the town of New Paltz to serve on our affordable housing board.
Then why don't you make it a joint board with the town? I don't understand. Why are-
Because there's only a village affordable housing law. And if the town adopts an affordable housing law, then it would make complete sense to have a joint affordable housing board. And when that happens, we can do that. But I also struggle with this concept that someone who lives east of Jolin Road or west of the Wallkill or north of Henry W. is not my neighbor or community member. I feel like we identify with the core of this downtown as our community. I feel that this law makes enormous sense.
I'm sorry, Tim. I just don't agree with you.
We can
because-
absolutely agree to disagree.
Yes, because we're the village and the village, otherwise we don't need to have, yes, I agree. If we were one village and town, if we were one government, then I would be fine with it, but we're not one
And
government.
that's a completely different multi-layered conversation. If we could
No, but
wave
my point
if
is
we
that
could
if
wave
we-
a magic wand and make our government more efficient and not run into the issues of having to create a new taxing authority like a fire district, which we couldn't do anyways because we just received grant money from the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery to build a fire station out at Putt and Henry W. Like, there's so many moving parts to all of the decisions that drive why we are where we are today.
I'm going to disagree and say that as a village resident, I want to see village people on the boards. People
And
that vote in
Adele,
the
I
village
think
and pay village taxes.
I
Because,
think we all, oh, sorry. I thought you were done.
that's
Oh,
okay,
go ahead.
go ahead.
I agree with you. I want all village residents to serve on our village board. We're facing a major issue of lack of volunteers. And I mean, I'm so grateful that people today have said they're willing to volunteer and that you're willing to volunteer. Perhaps we'll fill all these positions with village residents, but that wasn't happening. And when that doesn't happen, that stalls government. We're so dangerous to not having quorum with the Affordable Housing Board, and Zero Place just opened up all those units, and then that would be a detriment to our community who can't get in these housings because we don't have a board to pass this. So
I think you had five offers tonight for that board.
that's wonderful. I'm so grateful.
And they're all
maybe-
village residents.
That's
So,
wonderful. And our goal was always to have majority village residents. And of course, if somebody comes to us and it's an application process, they come to us, and if we feel someone has ill reasoning for joining a board, then, that's something we would look at. But I mean, to have village residents is always the goal. And So thank you to everyone who said they would volunteer.
You know, I did do a little bit of research. I just can't remember about 3 or 4 weeks ago into how often this kind of thing happens. And it really only happens, from what I was reading, for very limited positions. It would be, for example, I think a village clerk or an attorney or the treasurer that could live outside of the village. I've never seen anyone from any of these boards. I have to dig that out, but I've never seen anything. And maybe it is common, but I looked it up, and I've only seen in New York State those kinds of appointments for a treasurer or maybe a clerk, something like that, but not for board appointments. Just doesn't. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adele.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our business agenda. Item number 1, climate equity justice related. Would anyone like to share thoughts about or summarize anything related to the rest of our agenda?
Thanks for
Good
coming.
night. Sure.
I just want to tell you that I'm serious, how much I appreciate. I mean, serious, all the effort that you guys have been putting into writing and getting these grants and focusing on our infrastructure, which is so needed, desperately needed, and you've been doing the job. And I really, honestly, really appreciate your effort and your intelligence that you put towards it.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, we have great staff and great engineers and elected officials. Everyone's very focused on trying to work on projects like
Well,
that.
It's extremely impressive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And thanks for the nice feedback.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the next item, we had a discussion about a request from Douglas Redrick of Eagles Nest Village, Band of Esopus Muncie, and Peter Brooks of the Piscataway Chaptico Band, and Cornelia Dim Alanta of the Lumbee Tribe of North Carolina. We were brainstorming about the possibility of organizing a ceremonial powwow in New Paltz. We're looking to, we reached out to colleagues at Historic Huguenot Street and our town historian. And we're looking to have a more formal conversation about what could be considered at our upcoming village board meeting on November 16th. Did I leave anything out? No. Okay, and
Exciting.
next year. Yep. The next item is related to the grant we received from New York State Parks to construct 2 bridges. We're mostly focused on the larger bridge that's closer to the northern end of North Manheim. So currently we have bid documents, but we have been discussing with our staff and our engineers about the possibility of adding an addendum to the bid documents. So an alternate pre-engineered pedestrian bridge could also be included as an alternative bridge bid. That might make some sense in terms of how much this bridge would end up costing. So are we tonight just letting the public know that these bid documents exist? Is that the reason that this is on our agenda?
It was those in September, but this happened there since that.
Okay, so I should make a motion that we will be accepting bid documents through, and I would like a little flexibility in terms of that date in case our engineers need additional time to create an addendum. So I would like to extend the deadline until November 21st.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Or for discussion, go ahead, Bill.
Are we, these bid documents are already designed, structured, or are we looking for contractors to come up and design?
Oh, it's already designed, yeah. It has to be designed. We can't do build design or design build in New York State. It's not allowable. The two entities have to be separate. All in favor? Aye. And then the next update is related to Hudson River Valley Greenway had committed to provide $135,000 to the village of New Paltz so that a connecting section from the bottom of Henry W. to the Walker Valley Rail Trail could be made. We have an easement from Roddy Serta across Mr. Serta's property. There's some integration that needs to take place and DOT review so that this path integrates with what's going on in that intersection. So like several things, it takes longer than originally anticipated, and Hudson River Valley Greenway was very nice to extend the their commitment to fund this project. So that's simply an update. And then item number 5 on this business agenda. So we had a EV charging station with hardware from ChargePoint, and we've been trying to find an alternative to ChargePoint because of the expense and the kind of surprise requirements where they have told us things like we need to buy a new router. So we've identified this company, GreenSpot, and they use EV Connect for hardware, but this seems like a much better arrangement for us where we would be reimbursed for the cost of electricity, and we would receive a small percentage of any of the gross proceeds. But really our goal is to basically make this just really a service, as long as taxpayers are not funding it. That I think is the legal requirement that I think we need to make sure that we're making sure is upheld. And we've looked at a few different opportunities to make sure that that charger is working for the community and for taxpayers. And we think we've identified a good partner. So I'm looking for the village board to authorize me to sign this letter of intent. All in favor? Aye. And the next item is about, we've been contacted several times by a property owner at 12-14 North Front Street. He was frustrated that he believes many years ago Verizon impacted the sidewalk in front of his house and then added blacktop, which is not worn very well. I mean, this is a very challenging situation because North Front Street is a state highway, so anything that is constructed by a property owner or the village on a state highway has to meet state standards and engineered plans that can be quite costly. We are, have been working on a sidewalk grant for many years. It's very complicated stuff to get done, unfortunately. And then we're actually going to use some of our CHIPS money to replace the sidewalk on Prospect Street, but we're not going to have bid docs available for that project until later, early next year. I was made aware of that by our superintendent of public works earlier this week, so I'm sharing that in this update. But I think probably one of the best things, or potentially more effective things that we can do, and we've had some luck with this before, like just maintaining an ongoing dialogue with the engineering staff at the New York State DOT, because what we've witnessed in the past is that, when we've asked them to do things like make sure that Main Street is paved, or if they could put in ADA compliant ramps on our Main Street or do striping a certain way, if we're in their radar screen and asking, and then when they find money that they didn't expect, sometimes they can pivot and make investments in our community. So that's my hope is really just to, stay in their radar screen and maybe just send a letter to our DOT colleagues requesting that they replace the sidewalks on North Front, so we may be a better host for tourists visiting the Mid-Hudson region and for SUNY New Paltz. I mean, I think that's a challenging theme that we think about on a regular basis, is that in the village of New Paltz, we are tasked with the responsibility of being a host for visitors. We witnessed that this weekend. I heard from several businesses that said they had never been as busy as they were the last couple of weekends, which is really fantastic for sales tax generation. Which is primarily enjoyed by the state and the county. But it would be really fantastic if the state and the county looked at New Paltz as a host and, assisted us with fulfilling that role. Because we love our visitors. It's nice showing off how fantastic of a community we have. But we just need resources to do it.
And what's interesting too is New York State Office of Tourism always features New Paltz in the fall campaign. It's been consistent for the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
Do a
and they
lot of
don't-
things in that direction, but what we really need is.
Yeah, we want our visitors to enjoy ADA compliant sidewalks. That'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, like, they don't feature the fact that the sidewalks aren't that great. Yeah, so I'm in support of, another letter to DOT, this one, on this topic. Let's do it.
That's your second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And the next item is a resolution of the board adopting local law of 2022, amending chapter 212.7 of the village code entitled zoning map. And then I motion that we refer this map to the planning board for comment at their November 1 meeting. Someone want to second that motion? All in favor?
Aye.
The next item has to do with a response memo regarding sales tax sharing and the town of New Paltz's preliminary 2023 budget. Our treasurer was really struggling with some of the comments from the town board, led by Deputy Supervisor Dan Torres. And I think what was particularly challenging about the assertions and that Mr. Torres seems to believe that the town would be subsidizing the village with $250,000 of sales tax revenue. The methodology for sharing sales tax does in no way suggest that that is at all how it would work. And then I think what's even more troubling is that when you dig down and look at the town's preliminary budget, they have only included $94,000 for sales tax that would go into their B fund, and then the methodology would include, so the town has historically, or the last couple of years, budgeted $250,000 in gross sales tax. So if our village's assessed value is 23% of the entire town's assessed value, 23% of $250,000 is $57,500. It is not $250,000. So even if you add 94,000, which is in the B fund preliminary budget, plus the $57,500 that we have asked to be paid directly from the county, we're nearly $100,000 short from the $250,000 number that was that was used last year and that the town board spoke about anticipating this year. So where is this nearly $100,000? And I think also very noteworthy is in the 2021 actual budget, the town didn't get $250,000. They got $319,000. So 250,000 is a super conservative number. And then if you look at the town of Saugerties and the village of Saugerties and their methodology, none of the town's assertions make sense. And immediately after their meeting on Thursday, October 22nd, I asked them to share some calculations or arithmetic. They said they felt their comments at the meeting on Thursday evening were super clear. So, you know, we're left in the very awkward position of having to explain on their behalf how this is supposed to be handled, and then also left scratching our heads why the town is not accurately accounting for sales tax revenue. Where is the money? And I've drafted a memo. I think everyone at this table has read the draft. I think we're left in a position where, because we've asked the town board to meet to discuss this publicly, we've asked them for some explanation. You know, I'm not sure at this point what we can do besides, you know, share this memo publicly and ask for feedback from the state comptroller's office. So I'm turning to my board colleagues here to see, you know, how you feel about these questions, and, you know, was anything unclear in the memo that I worked on and then had our treasurer and Autumn Seguin, our project manager, proofread.
Well, I read it and I thought it was quite clear, any points valid and questions that needed to be asked. No. I thought it was a good, great memo. Given the circumstances.
At the very least, we need an explanation for their math, at the least. And ideally, we should be meeting jointly and discussing this and figuring out a way to work together that makes sense, you know, this cooperative.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I thought your letter is great. And I mean, this is all about, if we look at what everybody wants, right? The goal is to better New Paltz Village and town. So how can we figure out to make this happen? And I mean, I really appreciate the comparisons to Saugerties. And, you know, these are answers that we just need to discuss and find out.
Yeah, you know, I also really appreciate just the clarification of some key issues in the memo that I wish we had the opportunity to clarify at a joint meeting, you know, like the water revenue claim. That really bothered me because, you know, there's New York State laws that we have to follow, and we follow them to a T, obviously, you know, about how water utilities work. And it's not like some revenue thing that just goes into the general fund, like water money has its own water fund. Yeah, so that clarification I think was really important to get out there, and it's really important to get out there.
Yeah, it was suggested by the deputy supervisor that the town receives water revenue, so we're not comparing apples to apples when we're looking at the town's A fund. But you know what I find troubling about that is our water fund, our sewer fund, the expenses and revenues in each of those funds are completely siloed from our general fund and each other. There's no legal mechanism for accounting for those revenues to offset expenses in our general fund.
this will be shared with the town.
Right, I mean, I'm wondering, I reached out informally to try to understand, what we should be doing with this, with these questions, because these are incredibly troubling questions. The misrepresentation about how revenues would be booked by the village and booked by the town. I'm really scratching my head and wondering what exactly is going on, and I'm fearful that when we inquired, we were brushed off as if it is what it is, but it's completely incorrect. That this is not how municipal finance works.
Yeah, and I'd like to add too that it was mentioned at the town meeting how a joint meeting would have helped communication. And we historically have, at least as long as I've been on the board, I can speak for, wanted to have joint meetings, and it was the town who shut us down and did not want to partake in joint meetings. We used to have them on the calendar, and oftentimes the village would show up when it was the town's turn to host, and when it was the village turn to host the joint, they didn't have quorum, and so no one showed up. So that created, these conversations and could have been had those meetings continued even on a less frequent basis, have them somewhere on the calendar at some point. So that just upset me to hear that that was mentioned when that's been something that we've always wanted to have.
Yeah, there's a clear paper trail of our office and myself asking for joint meetings, and it was at a joint meeting where the town supervisor informed us they would no longer be attending joint meetings, and it was so long ago that KT was on the board, and she said you can't make this decision unilaterally, and it was explained that they made the decision and we had to live with it. So I really struggle with this narrative that this could have been discussed at a joint meeting.
Yeah.
I really enjoy looking at numbers and spreadsheets, and this is not difficult stuff for myself to take a closer look at and explain why their assertion that they're subsidizing the village with $250,000 is just completely wrong and misleading.
I think most importantly, our constituents, both, people who live in the village, which is also part of the town, so their budget affects us in that way. And to people who live in the town and not the village, everybody should get the answers that they need about the budget and about the numbers, and everybody should clearly understand how it works as best possible. I mean, I know some of it's convoluted for a lot, a lot of things are hard, but it can be clearly stated, and the fact that they weren't willing to discuss the math with us is, I just want everybody to be clear. I want our constituents to understand how their monies are being spent and allocated.
If I can also just, another point I need to say, in that meeting, there was a point where Deputy Supervisor was, saying like anytime the village passes laws that, mean there has to be more enforcement or court appearances and stuff, I really like that they're subsidizing basically like the laws that we pass in that way. Just want to point out that for any housing laws that that's one big reason why we were really excited that our county representative, Eve Walter, was pushing for the resolution that passed in the county, providing legal services to tenants in need, stuff like that. Like, we're not, so that argument totally falls on its face. Just want to point that out.
Also, village taxpayers and town taxpayers.
Yeah. I would love to be able to see the town budget more broken down in terms of the police part of it too, that's been just something I've always wanted since moving here in 2003, so. Anyway, what are we doing with this memo? Like getting it to them, getting it to the world? Getting it to the
What do you think,
comptroller?
what do you think would be appropriate? I mean, I think answers are desperately needed.
I think it should be forwarded to them at the very least. And, why not have it in the paper? So that everybody can, be on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation was started publicly. Yeah, I think it's important to be on the record publicly if there's again, I'm really almost at a loss for words here. I understand the motivation behind a misinformation campaign that I felt I witnessed watching that Thursday night meeting.
Feel bad for my cats. They've had to watch that like 5 times now, and it's like bad. I really think we should send it off to the comptroller's office. Like, honestly, I just feel so nervous about some of the accusations that were made, whether they were stated like point blank or whether they were insinuated that make us seem sketchy, and like Girl Scouts honor. Like, I want everything to be above board, and I don't know, it feels, it just feels really like somebody needs to review all this stuff.
And at a minimum, I think what we identified with them just by our review of their budget is there's money missing. There's revenue missing from their budget. You can look in their preliminary budget on revenues for sales tax. The number 0 is entered for 2023 preliminary budget, and the number 94,000 is entered in the B fund under sales tax revenues. So again, 94 plus 57,500. That does not add up to 250,000. It does not add up to 319,000, which was received in 2021.
And then they're saying that this is going to be part of why they have to raise tax.
Right, so their preliminary budget includes a tax increase of 5.6%. Which, I can't remember the last time that the town did not exceed the 2% tax cap law. So the suggestion that this change is the reason that they're proposing a 5.6% tax increase does not seem realistic.
Yes, and the tax increase has huge repercussions across the board with housing, with affordability. So this is something that everything, like you mentioned, Alex, has to be above board. These are very valid questions that's going to affect the entire community, and to intimate that the village's fault that there's this type of increase. I mean, there just needs to be more communication regarding that, because we don't understand.
Yeah, it feels like a political smear campaign, not anchored in any sort of financial reality.
Yeah, and like furthermore, if we could get something anchored in financial reality, I think that would be another good starting place to restart conversations about, sharing more services and getting creative. How do we cut costs and stuff? But we can't have that conversation if we're not dealing with real numbers, and also not meeting and discussing. So it's like, yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
so we'll move forward as discussed. And moving on to business agenda item number 9. So we had an encouraging call with the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. They explained there may be an opportunity for our village to apply for projects that we have worked on in the past. One very important project that we had some work done initially was designed to further harden the sewer plant to protect it from large flood events. So we're going to take some of those plans that we worked on a few years ago and potentially reapply and seek financial assistance. So I'd like to actually make a motion that if that opportunity arises, because they told us that the turnaround time or the opportunity might be very near term. So I'd like to make a motion that if we hear back, because we've been sharing documents this week, and I explained how we were having this meeting and that I could share this with our board and seek support from our board to apply. So I'm asking that our board go ahead and authorize an application if that opportunity arises. Any questions?
This is strictly hardening.
Strictly hardening as opposed to other stuff that,
Expansion.
oh, definitely not expansion. This is, I mean, it's resiliency stuff. It's not economic development stuff. I think what's attractive about the possibility of this project is it's like low cost, high impact. We all know that the proximity of the sewer plant, because gravity is important when you're operating a sewer plant, and proximity to a waterway so you can discharge disinfected effluent is important. But we have floods, and with climate change and superstorms, the floods are scarier. So we want to protect that plant even with low tech solutions like berms best we can. So that's your second? Or no, I think Donna seconded it. All in favor? Aye. And just since we're talking about berms, maybe we'll share this more officially at the next meeting. But as part of our drinking water source protection initiative that we've been doing in partnership with the DEC, our staff in the Public Works Department did a really fantastic job constructing a new berm outside of reservoir number 4 to add some protection from the fact that the reservoir number 4 is so close to Mountain Rest Road. So we have some cool pictures that show the berm that was constructed with the new excavator that we purchased earlier this year. We've actually been getting very good use from that excavator. So the next item is I motion to move bills and claims. All in favor? Any PB liaison update? Okay, and then so I think we kind of did a mini PB liaison update by and this was Autumn's idea, is to, on our announcements and on our social media and website, just aggregate all of our different public hearings, whether it's VB, PB, ZBA, just to try to engage as many people from the public as possible. So, that was included in our announcement section. Any ZBA liaison update?
We have not met in our last meeting.
And then the next meeting is scheduled for the 7th, and there will be that public hearing for 65 Huguenot Street. What?
Yes, it's a Monday, not a Tuesday.
Right. And then we had this fire truck item on the consent agenda, and I just moved it down to the business agenda because I just wanted to give the fire department a shout out. I've found that over the years, they really do a great job of researching equipment and comparing different things to buy and if we're going to do something as monumental as purchasing a new truck, just thinking about what should be included in the truck to make it as impactful as possible and cost effective as possible. So I just wanted to give Chief Worthman and the committee that worked on this design a shout out. And I got a picture of it, and Corey spent time explaining to me how this pumper will work and how it's a valuable update from what we have been using. So thanks, team.
One of the things about having this particular apparatus and a large delivery system that is taxed and often fails at critical moments, this is going to be a great addition.
Yay.
Good stuff.
Good.
Motion to adjourn?
Oh,
Wait,
didn't we have,
sorry.
We have to approve that.
Oh,
And then didn't we also move something else to business agenda? The Affordable Housing Board bit.
the Affordable Housing Board.
Susan Biggins thing. It was
Oh,
crossed
okay.
out,
You want to talk
yeah.
about that? Sure. So motion to move authorizing Chief Worthman's quote to purchase a new firefighter apparatus, which would replace our 1996 Freightliner engine and the 1997 Freightliner tanker. So the idea is that this truck will do the work of two trucks with a custom Seagrave pumper tanker in the amount of $1,999,059. And then the vehicle is not expected to be delivered until 24-25. That's another reason it's important to do this work, because the lead time is so long. So it gives our treasurer actually, it's tough in terms of getting new equipment, but it's somewhat useful because it helps with a long runway for financial planning. Okay, so motion second, all in favor, aye. And then Susan, we're going to talk about Susan's willingness to serve on the Affordable Housing Board.
So just a little further clarification from Will, but I do have a follow-up with him that he hasn't gotten back to me yet, but I just emailed him right before the meeting. So a person on the affordable housing list to acquire housing can have no involvement with the Affordable Housing Board, and this includes as a secretary. So it's just another little piece of it. So if our secretary for the Affordable Housing Board wants to apply for affordable housing, they cannot do that, having that position. So that opens up another element to it. But it's actually Suzanne.
Oh, not Susan. Okay,
Yeah.
Suzanne.
So Suzanne would love to stay on the board, and I know everyone was so grateful for her volunteering to be on the board. Without her, there's two people on the board. And I just don't know if there's a way that she can recuse herself because of the nature of the way the Affordable Housing Board is and the sensitivity of information. So I don't know what the answer is, but I would love to be able to see what kind of some things we can put together. With the folks today who said they would join the Affordable Housing Board, that's wonderful because that enables us to give Suzanne a break from the board while her application is on the table, and then hopefully she can rejoin when that's complete. So
So, because the way we wrote our resolution opting into the Ulster County Housing Smart Communities Program, designating, Landlord Tenant Relations Council and Affordable Housing Board is kind of like the de facto groups to help ponder like next steps for hitting all these milestones and stuff, you know, I would say Suzanne could continue to volunteer, you know, in support of affordable housing issues, you know, by applying for the Landlord Tenant Relations Council for that time too, you know, and continue to, you know, be an awesome asset to the village in that way. And not, you know, not the same thing, but similar and also really helpful. And I would love to have her.
Yeah, yeah, and like I said, I'll see what kind of clarification Will can offer me. Sure. And I'll share that.
But we still have to accept her resignation because she can't apply and be on the board. Or are we waiting for Will?
I would say, should we wait for Will?
I'm fine waiting for Will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's do that, and then I'll inform everybody what, those details are.
Okay.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Bye.